The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB TV. Hot topics, food, fun, entertainment, and serious business. Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese.
This is one of my very favorite guests of all time. But this is one of my very favorite guests of all time because Dr. Arnold Stalk, PhD, has just revolutionized the way we care for veterans here in Southern Nevada and has done a remarkable job. I met him in 2012. I always tell him this because with his first Veterans Village, I was one of those skeptics. I thought, now, you're going to put the veterans in an old rundown hotel? That's just nasty. I just thought it was a terrible thing. Then I get down there to cover the story, and it knocked my socks off. And with every successive project, it's gotten better and better and better. I think we're up to, let me see, 1, 2, 3. Some of these are in progress, 4, 5, 6. Correct. I think we're at 6 now.
That's right.
I'm tracking.
We are. Yes, we are.
We're going to talk about his latest one. The one that you might have been most recently, a lot of coverage, was the Veterans Village Assisted Living Facility down on Fremont, right off of 14th Street. That was a big one. Then he's also working on another one, these tiny houses, which is my personal favorite. I'm just so geeked up about that project. He's also working on a special veterans village just for female veterans who have specific challenges that the guys don't always have. But we're going to start with this high end. Now, one of the things that I love about all of these projects, you have targeted pretty much every, as far as I know. I mean, there might be homeless veterans with dogs and cats, and you haven't just gotten around to them yet. But you've targeted just about every single segment of the population, of the homeless population here in Southern Nevada. Your first Veterans Village, of course, was more of a get the guys and women off the streets, get them the crisis care that they need. Then you went to permanent housing. We're going to find a place for these folks to be able to hang their hats up and know that they've got a place to stay, which was also connected to the crisis center. Correct. Which is also open to the public. And we had John Fogerty who was there. That was fantastic. Then I get hooked. I get a call because I'm on speed dial. So I said, Arnie, what do you need me for? Just call me and I'll be there. He's like, well, we're doing this special thing for female veterans. I learned so much that day. That's another project you're working on. He's got the tiny houses. Now, these things are like, you have to go see these houses. And here's another thing, folks. All of these projects, if you have a chance, go try to take a tour so you can see the good work that he's doing. The tiny houses are like these. How would you describe them?
They're converted ocean containers.
Right.
So it's an 8x40 repurposed container that was hauling imported goods, and we converted it, completely gutted and converted it to a house.
Okay.
So
they're amazing. Okay, but we're going to start with the newest. Now we've gone from downtown, these renovated motels, which when I say renovated motels, it just doesn't do them justice. They are fabulous. And then now we've got from that to out in the Northwest. It's called, fittingly enough, La Mansion.
Yes, and that's a separate project from Veterans Village, but it's a very high-end, luxurious assisted living residence, 12 suites, that's run by the Cortez family, who's a longtime family in Las Vegas, and I'm an integral part of that project.
Okay. Now, why? I think people just assume if you've got that kind of money, why would you need this separate facility?
Because our entire population is aging. We're living longer. We don't have facilities to help people that can't live independently anymore. And so the Cortez family came to me, and I've been working with them to develop this residence, which they're going to run. And it is a need in our community that's going to be increasing more and more. There's a lot of other assisted living residents that have opened around the valley, and the demand is just going to keep going up. Right.
We've got the baby boomer population that's actually aging quite quickly.
That's correct.
And these services need to also be in place. How did you, first of all, what part, when we say the Northwest, it's so big, it's like off of not Durango, which street is it?
El Capitan
El
and Tropical.
Capitan and Tropical. Okay, so that's over there, kind of off the 215. If you're thinking about what part of town that is, it's kind of like the old horse properties that are quickly disappearing. This
Correct.
property is, you said 5 acres.
5 acres.
5 acres. So this is not just a high-end assisted living facility. It's really a luxury facility for folks, who can afford it.
It is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And it'll have fully staffed, fully licensed by the state operation, and it'll be a state-of-the-art facility, just like we. And by the way, thank you for having me on. Always appreciate that, Rikki. It's just like it doesn't matter if someone has $20,000 a month or if they don't have any money. We treat them exactly the same. In the projects I'm involved in, we treat them exactly the same way.
What is your definition of a veteran? Because I have, basically, you know what, guys, I admit I stalk all my guests. So I stalk Arnold Stalk, wherever he goes. And so I do run into some interpretations of what is a veteran. How do you classify a veteran? Do they have to have served in combat?
No, not at all. So the VA has their definition of what a veteran is. I remember I was at a meeting once with a very high-profile elected official and a bunch of operators. They spent an hour and a half trying to define what a veteran is. I don't want to spend my time doing that. If someone's been in the armed forces of the United States in any capacity, including the National Guard, who are people that see active combat, a spouse, a military spouse, who's just as much a veteran because he or she has lived that military life
Right.
for any period of time, and in many cases, many years, or veteran connected, someone who's related to a veteran or a military family. I was in a Starbucks the other day, and it says, "I am a Navy daughter," with an American flag on it.
Yeah.
So the vast majority of the veterans that we house are veterans that have duty DD-214s, which is their discharge from the service, their paperwork. They fit the definition of a veteran by most people, but I don't turn people down just because they've been here or they've been in that line, or and especially veterans that are not housed elsewhere.
Right.
We will house them.
Right.
So.
I found an article, an RJ article from 2016, and tell me if this is still true. It said that apparently HUD found that we were functionally zero when it came to homeless veterans because so many programs have been put into place, and that was across the valley, that we didn't really have a homeless veteran. Now, we still have a homeless problem in general, but the HUD did not feel that we had a homeless veterans problem. Do you agree?
Well, I think they wanted to believe that. But what Functional Zero was an initiative by First Lady Michelle Obama
Right.
and Dr. Jill Biden. It came out of the Obama White House. And Functional Zero was a goal to end veterans' homelessness. And it meant that we have the capacity to deal with veterans here. It did not mean that we ended homeless veterans. If we did, then I wouldn't have 100% occupancy in two of our developments. Excuse me, and that the calls that we get constantly are from veterans that are homeless. They don't have a place to go. So the semantical and the numbers game is something that I always try and stay away from.
Right.
All I know is our lobby's full. We want to help our veterans.
Right.
And that's how we approach things.
They're out there, and the word is getting out. That's the reason why I have you on the show so much. Is
Thank you.
One of the things that I found, and I'm just full disclosure, I am a military dependent. My father was career Air Force, and I was married. I was a wife of an airman. So I see it from both sides. I've grown up in the military, and I've seen how hard our men and women work, and then to find out that as an adult that there are all these problems in the community, then you come along with Veterans Village, you kind of start this ball rolling. It wasn't just, it hasn't just been you building these projects. I think it just raised awareness in the community in general.
I
that
believe
we
it
had
did,
that. Yeah.
And then we were fortunate enough to have, just to finish up that part, invited to the White House by Mrs. Obama, and they recognized us as one of the agencies that really excelled in that program, Because it is awareness, and if you notice the news cycle now, the veterans have sort of, the only thing you're hearing are misbehavings in the VA. You hear very little about our veterans again.
Right.
So my job, my little end of the world is to keep shouting that thing out on social media and whenever I can. And the best way I know how to do it is keep opening new projects.
Right.
And housing people.
So let's talk about this and we're going to work our way back, because I live in that area of town, and I'm a reporter and I'm nosy. So when Arnold told me about it, well, the gate was open. They didn't say I couldn't trespass, so I did. It's beautiful. It's just
Thank you.
gorgeous. And again, raising awareness of all levels of care for veterans,
Right.
whatever their income level may be, because they've got family members and they would like to see their loved ones cared for in the best way possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I see it every day. I was on the phone triaging a sister of a vet that can't live independently anymore. We're trying to figure out how to pay for him at our new assisted living residence.
Right.
And it's a constant.
Right.
It's a constant, and so, but that's our mission, and I love it.
So let's backtrack on that one. That is the Veterans Village 3. That's on Fremont and 14th Street.
Correct.
Just gorgeous.
Thank you.
Just the
It's a beautiful
marble. It's a
facility.
really, really pretty facility, and it's got everything. It's just sort of like a mini version of the mansion. The way I looked at it when I was looking at all of your amenities, you've got everything at that one, and that's an assisted living facility that is at La Mansion, just on a smaller scale.
Well, this one has 88 beds in it.
Right.
And so
La Mansion has 12, right?
12 suites.
Right? 12 suites.
But in this facility we have chef prepared meals, and we just made a deal with 3 Square, the MGM, and the Wynn to get catered meals, flash frozen and served. So people are going to be eating state-of-the-art foods like chicken cacciatore and filet, Dover sole and stuff like that. And also we have made a partnership with the Lou Ruvo Brain Institute and the Cleveland Clinic. We have all those things that we're doing that aren't normally offered at an assisted living residence, and concierge service.
Yeah.
And
you have a full medical facility there.
There's a full medical clinic
Yeah.
in there. There's a pool table and a game room.
A piano bar.
There's you know it as well. You know it better than I do, Rikki.
And a courtyard.
And there's a beautiful
Am I a
courtyard.
fan or what? Yeah.
And those are things you don't see. So when people come out to visit us, they don't see what they think they were expecting.
Right.
And so I'm meeting with everybody that I can, working with the VA. We're going to get a visit from Tony Shea from downtown, from Zappos, on Friday. I'll meet with him, or I'll meet with somebody who wants to bring in a case of water.
Right.
And they all get treated the same. And you never know who you're going to meet and what I do.
Right. It's amazing.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. So let's go back to that. I'm going to kind of jump around just a little bit here.
Sure.
The tiny houses. I love the tiny houses because
So do I.
they're. When I walked in that first time, I just couldn't get over it being a shipping container. It's so sleek. It's something that I would love to put in my backyard, so when my nieces and nephews come to visit, you guys have got your own place back here. Right?
No, it's a house.
It's a house.
It's definitely a house. It's hard to describe without seeing it, but it is it's a converted and recycled container. It has a living space, galley kitchen, bath, full bath and shower, and a bedroom. And it also has, we're going to have Tesla solar technologies in it. It's going to be off the energy grid. And next month that container is going to be featured at the National Hardware Show in the Las Vegas Convention Center.
That's fantastic.
So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, they're just really, really gorgeous.
Yeah.
Now we've got one that's a challenge, and I didn't realize it until I went to the little get together that you had, the breakfast for women from different veterans organizations here in town, and the challenges that were unique to female veterans. Until that morning, I just kind of lumped all veterans together. But then I realized, oh my gosh, this is something that is, you've got a whole bunch of guys, and then you've got a few women. And so one of the things that I heard from many of the women at that breakfast was female veterans not realizing that they qualify as veterans,
Right.
that they wouldn't self-identify as veterans. I thought that was amazing.
Well, and I can't speak specifically. I can speak in generalities because I've heard stories now for 6.5 years.
Right.
And the stories range from intense discrimination, rapes in the service, issues that are uncomfortable. Women that were told you're not a veteran unless you've been in active combat, all sorts of crazy stuff. We have a female veteran that lives with us and has been with us for several years. That was worked on a Navy hospital ship. Is an RN, and she hid her being a woman for 3 months. They didn't know she was a woman on the ship.
What?
And so and she had
How did she make it past basic training and all that other stuff?
don't know.
Right.
In Vietnam. And
Yeah.
so and the stuff that she saw, because she was on a hospital ship and she worked in the morgue, caused severe PTSD and other issues. A delightful young lady, delightful woman. She's now in her probably close to late 70s. But it occurred to me that we need to have different specialized housing, just like we need in our society.
Right.
Right now, our production of affordable housing here, in all seriousness, with the exception of us, is zero. We don't have nonprofits building housing, except Nevada Hand, and they do multifamily mainly in seniors. I want to do the hardest to house, the ones the throwaways, the people that have no voice, the people that are rejected by our society. To me, are the most fascinating.
Yeah.
Because they're just like you and I, except that they've fallen in different issues in different times in their lives in different cycles.
Well, and growing up here, I've watched the transformation. There's another word for that because that's actually too positive. How it started when we actually did have projects, where we did have parts of town where, like off of Gerson Park and those types of areas. And then we had the housing projects, and then those were done away with because, and then we had Section 8, and then that was sort of done away with. Now we've got people who are not only food deficient, but it's impossible. I'm talking to people all the time. They can't rent a house. People who do actually have money and have some income are having a hard time finding a house to rent. So I can't even imagine what that's like to be a veteran and you've only got so much money coming in. Where do you go?
Well, they need to have 700 plus credit and first and last month's rent and a security deposit. So when you add that up on any house scenario, it's tough on people. And so those are issues that I believe that it's not a government solution. I believe it's a community solution, not only for veterans but for all of homelessness.
Right.
When I came to Southern Nevada 27 years ago, I was at the corner of Four Master and North Main Street, which is our Skid Row, and the city has called it several different names. Now I think it's Corridor of Light or Hope or something.
Whatever, all right.
It's the same thing. And now they're opening this courtyard where people are going to sleep on rubber mats. So we're back to the same thing that we are. The only thing we're not doing is building housing.
Yeah.
And so I'm a pest. I'm a pain. We just went into a new venture that I announced on Sunday with Family Housing.
Right.
And we're building 120 units of housing on Fremont and Eastern.
Well, and I get crazy because, being a local, I see all these plots of land. And growing up, I went to Rancho, and when I worked at Channel 3, I watched that whole area. It's never really gotten better. The problem has just shifted.
It's exasperated itself.
But there's this big, huge plot of land there in the corner that's right across adjacent to Jerry's Nugget.
I know the owner.
And it's been there, and it's been open since I was in high school. And thinking, well, who owns that land, and can't we work some sort of deal with this person to try to see, because it's not making any money, it's just sitting
Well,
there.
and I'm real black and white, so I have had this conversation with city officials.
Sure.
And one of the answers is, well, that's in North Las Vegas. I talk to North Las Vegas and say, well, it's not our problem, it's a city problem. Then you talk to Clark County, and they're saying, well, we're going to stay out of that. You talk to Henderson, and they really don't want to touch it. So this is one of the most intense social problems that we have in the valley. That we only way that I know how to resolve this again, is to build housing and provide intensive services, which we have. We already have the infrastructure here to handle
Right.
it. You see government officials running to other cities and, well, they do this and they do that. We know how to do this.
Right.
We need money.
Right.
And
Well,
so-
you got started actually in LA. You started in California
At the redevelopment agency.
and then so you came up, and just from what I've read about you and the conversations we've had, that fueled your intense dislike of public funding.
Public funding is a blessing, and to me it's an ultra curse.
Right.
And the reason that it is the time, the waste of money, the replication of governmental agencies that oversee it, the bureaucrat, the politics of it, the politics of homelessness in this country is intense. And for many people, homelessness has become their career. They depend on homeless numbers to be up. I depend on homeless numbers to be down.
Yeah.
And so they're not popular things to say, but we have people that are now that are colleagues of mine. They're now retiring. They've worked on this homeless thing their whole career, and it's worse than it was. So,
Right.
So what is that? So my whole thing is take it out of the public sector, use the public sector for pieces of the pie. Like the city of Las Vegas invested $2 million in Veterans Village 2. It's going to be paid back. It helped us close. That's the function of government, to be a
Right.
catalyst.
Right.
And so then we went out and got private money and a private loan, and then the Wynn got involved, and now the Venetian's involved, and a bunch of the Raiders, and I got everybody but the Bronx cheerleading squad involved in our projects.
You really have to go on the website. It's like the list of on your website has grown since the last time we actually
Yeah.
had you on
Oh,
the
yeah.
show. It's
Yeah.
just exploded.
Yeah.
How do you, for all of these, again, I'll go back to that very first Veterans Village when I was a skeptic, and thinking, how do you take this old rundown hotel and make it motel, not even a hotel, it's a motel,
Right, it's a
and
motel.
make it look like something? What I found and what I've seen with all of these projects, your ability to mobilize these, not just the major players here in town, the major gaming companies or the major utility companies, but to get these volunteers, these small groups, the Girl Scouts here
Right.
and the Boy Scouts here and
Right.
this church there. Like when you go out to a Veterans Village project, you don't just see the big Wells Fargo's T-shirts.
That's correct.
You see a whole bunch of little different groups that are coming
Right.
out too, that are helping make this project possible.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Well, we make makeovers fun. We think they're fun.
Yeah.
And so there's music, there's food, there's a limit to 4 hours, so people don't burn out. And the one thing that companies like, it's good rah-rah for their employees.
Yeah.
Employees who would normally either not know each other or not connect because they're doing their job in their make a living life, come out and they're arm in arm helping revitalize and restore old buildings. It's a tried and true Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity 101, the way I came into Habitat, I'm a former board member, and the way we did is we built a lot of housing. Here they build housing, but not a lot.
No.
And so that's our niche. Get people excited about change.
Yeah.
About
yeah.
positive change.
And I love it that you get people who, let's face it, would probably not normally interact with this group of folks in our community unless they were volunteering.
That's right.
And to get them out of Summerlin, to get them out of Anthem, to get them out of Centennial Hills, to come down to these projects. Most of them have been in the city of Las Vegas. That's why I was so interested. The mansion is that Clark County or is that city of Las Vegas? That's Clark County.
It's Clark County, but again, that's a separately owned one. But
Right.
it's got my hand all over
Right.
it. So yeah,
So
that's
that-
in Clark County.
Right. So that was like, oh my, he's branching out,
Right. Well, I've talked to Mayor March several times, and she's an old colleague and friend of mine, about doing something in Henderson. Next week we go. It's not in Henderson, it's on the borderline near Patrick and Russell for a very contentious zoning thing. Because again, people, not my neighborhood, not in my area. We love the veterans, but do it downtown.
Right.
And so we're next Tuesday night. I'm going to be at a very controversial, my own project that we're trying to get zoned.
Okay. Well, when you see the stories that have been done on all of these projects, if anybody had any doubt of the dignity and the respect that these folks have that we should have for them, but that they have for each other, go out to one of these projects. This is not like homeless people, drinking a 40 out of a plastic bag.
Right.
These are men and women who, you guys have high standards at every single one of these projects. So it's not like you're just taking in everybody. Of course, you're triaging and you're helping people get on their feet, but they've got to also help themselves.
Well, you know that because you spent the time to come out there, and it's very hard to get people to come out there that believe something that's not true. And so it's like with the city, and I've offered many times with the city to help them for free, to reach out to the private sector. And we just, one of my favorite quotes in life is an Einstein quote, that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Right.
We can't keep using antiquated ways to solve social problems, or 1970s or 80s, the old grants are gone. They're not there anymore.
Right.
But they keep still trying to go back to that same way of overspending and not producing results, which makes people frustrated.
Yeah.
And if you look in a lot of the news covers, the homeless person in the street, and they talk about the homeless, they're going to show a guy laying in the street, with a bottle or whatever, and that's not the norm with us. I see it every day. So I don't have to have a homeless count where they get into a car and drive around and see who looks homeless. We know who's homeless.
Right.
They're in our lobby all day long and all night.
Right.
So I'm a little passionate about it. I can't help it.
Just a tad.
Yeah.
I was at the Veterans Village 2, where the crisis center is, one day, and I think Judy was there, one of your, she's like sort of one of your...
She's our controller and my right
lieutenant
hand.
in command.
Yes, she is. Air Force daughter.
Oh my gosh. You got so much food from 3 Square, you couldn't walk in the kitchen. The donations that come in also are just amazing from the organizations that care.
Our 2 main suppliers are 3 main. One is 3 Square, of course. And through 3 Square, we get Whole Foods and Trader Joe's, and Smith's, Albertsons, Winco, Dunkin' Donuts, and Starbucks coffee. And when I started, my father, who asked me to do this, said, do it right and do it Vegas style. And that's in my mind every single day.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with a regular pot of coffee, but there's much better. I really get there by knowing that our residents are drinking Starbucks coffee.
It's a fantastic.
And we treated them like,
Yes.
living in the street. And the next hour, they're in our lobby having an overpriced designer sandwich from Whole Foods.
I was there one day when there was a couple, they stumbled in, and what they needed immediately, though, was to get clean.
Right.
And we were having this great conversation, and we were laughing like we're doing right now. And Arnie just went into like crisis mode. Mm-hmm. Okay, Judy, we have to do this and get him out to West Care and da-da-da-da. And then we went right back to the conversation like nothing had ever happened, because there's all of these different levels. You got to take care of the immediate problem to then help them transition into these houses.
They're all different.
Right, they're all different.
And so we're the only public restroom on the Strip. And we're the only provider that has a shower. We built a whole shower and a bathroom, and so someone could get a fresh set of clothes, take a shower, clean up, and hopefully during that time we can engage in a conversation of, what are you doing with your life?
Yeah.
Not thank you, we'll see you tomorrow.
Right.
We'll see you in the line.
Yeah.
And
I like it that you say you don't turn anybody away. If
No
they
one's
show up and
ever
they
turned
knock on
away.
that door, they're not being turned away.
Never.
Right. You're going to find a place for them. You're going to find at least a temporary solution until you can find a more permanent solution. And I've seen it. I've seen.
I know
proof.
you're the best, one of the best friends we have.
Well, I just, when you find a program that's working, especially coming up from nonprofits, because I actually started, a lot of people don't realize, I started in community affairs. But what I never knew was how government funding works. And now that I'm doing this show, I'm talking to so many different foundations and charities. I had no idea that just because you report on these big headlines, $6 billion for such and such and such. Right. No, by the time there's so many strings attached, and you can't do this with the money, and you can't do that with the money. And I remember asking one of our governors, a few governors back, it was one of those $6 billion headlines, and by this time I'm kind of ticked, because I'm seeing these headlines are coming down, but where is the money? Where does the money go? Who got it? how much are we going to get? Because $6 million for a whole country, that's nothing. That's like going to 7-Eleven, right?
Right.
And
First thing you got to do is divide it by 50, and then the bigger states get the lion's share of it, and then it's really divided by about 3.
Right.
And
I
that's
asked our governor. I said, "Well, where is this money going? First of all, when are you going to get it? How is it going to be dispersed? And how are you going to track it?" He looked at me like I was a lizard. He's like, "Well." I don't know. Call me kooky. I think that these are legitimate questions.
They're very good questions.
I bugged his office for weeks, and finally I just got off of it because I realized unless I was willing to be, Woodward and Bernstein and devote my life to actually tracking this money, in your day of general assignment reporter, you just don't have that kind of time. But nobody could answer just the simplest question. How much are we getting?
They're not going to answer that.
How much are we getting? When are we going to get it, and how are you going to disperse it? How is it at the bottom line for you? Is Veterans Village going to get a check? That's all I wanted to know.
Right.
Nobody can answer that question.
No, and every single day, my crisis intervention person sends out a letter, and we're going into over 200 days, to President Trump, to VA Secretary Shulkin, and to HUD Secretary Carson, with no answers, not even a form letter to us, just introducing us, saying, here we are, we're helping this many people a month, we've created a model for national replication, and not one answer. And so
not even an acknowledgement of your letter?
No. So I'm trying to think of some business-like manner in which to address this. And where I come from, you don't do it that way. But
Yeah.
I'm going to get the attention. I just haven't found the right media outlet yet. But I'm going to.
Right. Having seen so many of them, because I love to track your projects.
Thank
from
you.
start
We
to
love you.
finish. It's just so great to watch. The Crisis Center, if you have to go watch that one. That one, to me, was the most magical one because the wind actually built the panels. That thing was put up in 7 days.
Correct.
And so part of it was constructed off-site.
And you were constantly
But
there.
I was there every single day because it was so magical. Then these walls would go up, and then the guys would be here, and they would be doing that. And one of the ladies who's running your assisted living center, she actually said she wishes that the assisted living center folks could model the way you put up the crisis center because they had never seen anything like that. But even for me, I was like, just to watch that army of folks out there day after day after day, and major players here in this town having their folks showing up. And
big construction companies.
And this can be done, folks. We're seeing it right here. So what's the hold up? Yeah.
The holdup is complicated, but all I can do what's in front of me. And right now, I've got a master plan for the Fremont East District, from Fremont in Maryland down to Fremont in Eastern. We're going to pepper that whole area with special needs housing developments, villages, and now our latest one is families.
Right.
So.
Well, I just recently told somebody if someone had told me just a few years ago that I would be standing on 9th and Fremont and not think I was going to get shot. That the container,
right,
in the broad daylight,
right,
the container park,
and
all of that's been happening downtown.
To come back.
It's all starting to come back, and a sense of community. That's what I see, and that's what I sense too. Is like you've got young families down there; they feel safe, but also. I think the only people who have a negative connotation about downtown are the people who've grown up here. I just find that people who are new in town, they love downtown Las Vegas.
That's
They're
because
not scared of
most
it.
cities have matured downtown, revitalized downtowns. It's going to take time.
Sure.
I remember, like you said, we could have shot a cannon down Fremont. It was dead, and it may not come back the way people exactly. Oh, there's freaky people, it's a street scene. And so we should have the Strip and Fremont Street are our rivers.
Yes.
We don't have a river in this town.
Right.
But that's our lifeline.
Right.
So I think we need to especially treasure the Strip and really start to develop all of it.
Right.
So.
And I think the Goodmans have been I know that you're really good friends with them. And I always apologize to our former mayor, Oscar Goodman, because when he first started cracking down on the homeless problem, I thought he was just being so mean to the homeless.
Right.
But the cleanup had to happen before people would feel safe to come back down. And you've really filled that gap in terms of providing, at least for one segment of the population, a place for them to be safe.
Right.
Yeah.
And now we're moving on to other segments.
Right.
We'll get there eventually.
What are people saying, especially down by the crisis center, because that one was the one that really got me, that you were going to open the crisis center, not just to your veterans who are living there for their permanent housing, but also to the entire community to kind of build that trust?
Well, it's very emotional for me because we get loans with no money. And so we have lenders that believe in us and some investors. And 21st and Fremont was a battle zone. It was scary. I didn't, it took me an extra half hour to go down the first day when we owned it, because it had every social ill imaginable, as you know.
Right.
Today it doesn't have that.
Right.
And our food pantry feeds thousands of people a week.
I think the first time I drove down there, because I had trouble finding it, and I thought, well, where am I going to park?
Right.
Honestly, because that was my old, because I hadn't been down there in
How
so
would you know?
long.
And we provide valet parking when we have events.
It was fantastic.
So that people feel a little safer.
Right. Tell me about your inspiration. You've been on the show many times. For some people who haven't seen your story, you have a story of a dad and a grandpa, people who've served, who called on you to go forth with this mission.
Well, when you talk about immigration, which it should always be a popular subject, my grandparents came here from Poland and Russia. My grandfather escaped Auschwitz, self-taught, and lived the dream here. My father was a World War II Navy veteran, and my mom was a USO dance hostess in Columbus, Ohio, and she was a jitterbug specialist. And so,
I can just visualize that.
And so they were what is known as the greatest generation, and that's what fuels me every single day.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
What has been the biggest change since because I know that to sit down with Arnie, it's so hard to get him to talk about himself. I only know certain things, and I keep digging it out of him. I figure like 20 years from now I'll get the whole story, but I only get like one more sentence per time I have him on the show, so I'm building him up here. But we sat once, I think it was like maybe 2 projects ago, and you were showing me a map of downtown. I didn't realize that you had been involved in so many different projects, Shade Tree, or if you're you're a board member on all of these different projects. So long before you started working on for this, you have been putting your mark on a lot of different projects here in the Valley.
Yeah, we still are. I mean, I'm still deeply involved in the Shade Tree. I came back because they're having some challenges. But I've been on the board of United Way and Habitat for Humanity, Goodwill of Southern Nevada. I don't like talking about myself.
See?
Our nonprofit is Share. And I was founder of a nonprofit called Christmas in April, which is now rebuilding together. And I help other nonprofits behind the scenes a lot with some money, a lot of advice. I can tell a lot of nonprofits what not to do because I made a lot of mistakes in my career, but I try to learn from them. And our community is a great community. There are people in this, and after October 1, we know what this community is made of, but I get to see that every single day.
On the front lines.
People pulling up, and you've seen it, people pulling up every single day with food, clothing, businesses that open their arms to people, businesses that hire people that would never have a chance anywhere else, the second chance. And so this is a wonderful community, and I love it.
Right. Do the smaller nonprofits in any way maybe hinder what you're trying to do on a larger scale?
No.
No,
the smaller nonprofits do what they do. I think they do an invaluable service here. Mine is a risk I don't recommend anybody take because it's a heavy financial risk. We have about $30 million in development right now. And it's all guaranteed and personally guaranteed by me. And so most people don't do that, and they're smart for not doing it. I don't recommend it unless you really understand development and buildings and the system and unions and attorneys. I mean, and please forgive me, I see an attorney and I want to run the, because attorneys look at what I do and they say, that's not possible. You can't do that. I don't suggest that. How many times I've heard this? I don't suggest you do that, Arnie. That's not good. That's not conservative thinking. But that's what we do, and that's my background.
The week that he was closing, he was trying to get the escrow closed on the Veterans Village 3. I think I talked to him like 2 or 3 times that week because I was trying to get you on the show or something I wanted to do. And it was sort of like, okay, we have the escrow. Okay, no, we don't. Okay, we have the escrow. Okay, no, we don't. I mean, that was like 3 days of just, it must have been pure torture for you because every time I talked to you, it was like a cliffhanger.
Well, we were trying to figure it out, and it kept getting back alive and dying and back. So the seller, it was Mike Ganty. Mm-hmm. We were trying to get him. He was meeting with me and investors to see if we could bridge the gap. And we had a lot of flakes coming around. And so the last group was there, and it was really evident that they weren't going to be able to perform. Mike says, okay, he points to them, he goes, the 3 of you can leave. I'm doing this deal with Arnie.
Wow.
And he put a lot of equity into that project. So there's a huge leap of faith. Yeah. And now it's my job to work as hard as I can to fill it up, have it run right. We have an amazingly talented and qualified staff there, and we can help people. If anybody is watching your program, knows a veteran, or gets approached to help a vet, whether it's off the streets or assisted and we have a level 3 level 2 assisted living license, which means that people can live their life out there, that they don't have to leave on a level 1. They have to go to another home or a hospice, and they can live their life out with us.
Well, that was and
that's respect.
You've been a big influence on me because I started really looking really closely at what the nonprofits were actually doing, not just going out with my camera and saying, "Oh, look, this is really sweet, they built it," but actually understanding the business of nonprofits, which is very, very
Thank
intense.
you for doing that.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
It's very involved and detailed.
Yeah. And these folks, they're soldiers. The people who are running these smaller nonprofits here in this town, they are soldiers because they are going out there and they're dealing with regulations. In fact, I think it was when I had the 2 ladies on from Safe Nest and Shade Tree, that was the first time, and they had just met, and they both had just started. And then I don't even know why I was sitting here. They were just talking amongst themselves. I was just sitting here taking up space, and they just took off to the races. Yeah. But it was very educational for me because, first of all, I didn't know that there were so many strings tied to that. But then I also didn't realize that these programs don't last forever. Just because you get a grant, you have it for maybe 2 years or maybe 4 years, and if you're lucky, and then it goes away, and there's no guarantee you're going to get that money again.
So my organizational structure, opposed to a business model, is we don't chase grant money. We have the program, and then we get the program funded, so it doesn't diminish itself or dilute itself.
Right.
In terms of our services.
So you're planning ahead that this money is not going to be something that your program goes away because the funding goes away.
I purposely don't apply for that kind of money.
It's just, oh my God.
What do you tell a person at the end of the fiscal year you got to move? And what kind of a business plan is that? But our government has set up our nonprofits to compete with each other.
Yeah.
Which is another problem.
Yeah. I mean, there's only so much money, and I bring her up all the time because I'm just really geeky about her community garden. Rosalind Brooks over at Vegas Roots, when she called me one day and she said, "We've got this $500,000 grant," and I wanted to tweet about it and talk about it and put it on my Facebook. She goes, "No, don't do it right away." It's like, why? Because, well, first of all, we're going to get it, but we don't really have the money. And then when she explained to me, it's on paper, it's a good project. The SNAP recipients will get dollars matched for if they buy something under SNAP, then they get like vegetables or that type of thing.
That's correct.
But the project goes away after 2 years. So by the time you get the families to the point where they're really moving with it and they understand it and it works, it's over. So I said, well, that's got to be so frustrating because now you got to go out and there's no guarantee that this is going to continue. She's like, look, we're gonna do what we can. At least we're going to get it started.
That's why I go to the private sector.
Yeah. Yeah.
Faster, quicker, cheaper, and more upbeat employees get involved. So.
Well, hang out with us, folks, for just a couple more minutes. We're going to take a really quick break. John Stiles is over there running the board. We will be back with the inimitable Arnold Stalk of Veterans Village.
Crazy Terry here with your car care tip of the day. So it's not a bad idea every now and then to check your battery. If you don't know how to do it, have somebody check it for you. Just a visual inspection can tell you a lot about your battery. So as we can see here, this battery's got a hold down. It's nice and tight. The cables are on. They don't look bad. We've got a cover. We don't see any corrosion. Everything's kind of tight, looking good. A little bit of dirt, that's normal, but nothing's leaking. No real cause for alarm here. So that's a good sign. Doesn't mean it's good, but at least visually we know that it's intact. Okay, so we're looking at a battery here that shows signs of corrosion. We want to test that battery to make sure it's good. Usually when they're getting like this, there's going to be a problem, leaking some acid at the top. We ran the test and we find out it has 396 cold cranking amps, but the battery requires 650. So it's just not enough. The battery is going to go soon. Better to know now than later. Okay, so the benefits of checking the cable is because this cable's rotted out. What we'll find is this is the problem, not the battery. So it'll save you from buying a battery, still having the nose start, only to find out that it's a cable. This type of corrosion is common in diesels. Okay, so we're getting ready to jump the car, but we have to have some battery cables. And we have to check those too before we hook them up to the battery. So here we have our standard set of battery cables. We just look them over, see if the ends are frayed, if everything's connected all right. Everything looks good here. Wouldn't hurt to check the rest of the cable just to make sure the dog didn't get it and chew it up. We have red and black. Red's positive, black's negative. You always want to hook the positive up first and then the negative. And I'll show you how that's done right now. Keep these off to the side so they're not touching each other. Hook up your positive. You can find that right here by the plus sign, the negative sign. Plus is positive, red. Make sure that's securely hooked up. Keeping these away from each other. Hook up your negative cable. Just got to fight it on there. Figure out a way to get it. Wiggle it a little bit so it ensures a good connection. Now you're transferring voltage. If I hit these two together, we're going to spark. Kind of want to avoid that. Won't kill you. Kind of fun. A lot of people think if they can turn the headlights on, the battery's fine. That's not always the case. It takes very little amperage to turn a light on, but it takes a lot of amperage to start the starter. I recommend checking the charging system every oil change. At Sun Valley Automotive, there's never a charge for that. This is Crazy Terry with your car care tip of the day.
And we are back with Arnold Stalk, who is the founder of Veterans Village. And just so you don't think that he's like a Johnny-come-lately, just because I only met him in 2012, he's been working here in the community for many, many, many years, grew up and cut his teeth on public housing in Southern California, so he knows of what he speaks. But what impresses me most about him is his ability to get people to want to participate in these different projects. I mean, I've come to everyone. I've seen the people who are out there. It's the same crew. You know, it's like you've got these followers, the followers of Dr. Arnie Stalk. Because as you said, it is funny. You said attract, not promote. These projects, I feel I want to participate. Correct. Because I know I can see it. I see every single building you've put up. I see the quality of the work that you do. You know, it's not like something, I can actually go visit it, and I know that it's doing a good thing.
Thank you. Yeah. You know, we have people from all walks of life, and the expression is people that wouldn't ordinarily mix. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, left wing, right wing, the chicken wing. We don't have, when they come onto our property,
Right.
There's never been any politicking done.
Never.
And people are sitting next to each other that when that ceremony's over, they disagree on just about everything, but they agree on community and they agree on being there. Mm-hmm. And we've had some pretty intense people show up, like Mr. Fogarty, and a lot of different elected officials that usually don't go to openings.
Right. Yes.
And so
yes, I was surprised at the crisis center.
Yeah.
I saw some folks who I know that they never leave their offices.
Right.
It's like, and it was at night. It was late too.
Right.
Like,
it was Saturday night.
right. It's like, Really? You came to this? This is fantastic, and you're not even ready for re-election?
Right.
I didn't see a single
That's
campaign.
another one. Yeah, you're not running
That
for
told me a
re-election.
lot. That told me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving forward, so you've got the La Mansion, that's your latest one, and you've got the female veterans that you're working on, which of course, please feel free to call me on, because I want to learn more about what the female veterans are going through. That was a real education. So what's next after this this is your higher end of with La Mansion.
The next is we're going to close escrow, God willing, on the female veterans housing on 21st and Sunrise. And Sunrise Street and 21st is a very challenging area. We, with Metro Police taking the lead, have really cleaned that up in the last year and a half. It still has a lot of problems. But when you build and you regenerate and you revitalize neighborhoods, you paint buildings and you improve alleys, things change. And so that's happening. And then right next to that, there's a 3.50 acre development that we're just going into escrow on to develop about 112 apartments for families that were previously homeless, working families with children. And that's our next venture. And that's going to have maybe a 6,000 to 8,000 square foot community building in it that we're negotiating with a local nonprofit that'll just knock the socks off of services downtown.
Right. So if somebody's out there, and no matter what size your organization is, even if you're just, a single family and you just want to get involved, how can they reach out to you?
www.vvlv.org or 702-624-5792, which is my direct cell.
Yeah. He's really easy to find, trust me.
Thank you.
And if you just want to get, even if you're not going to do any work on the project, just to get that feel good, that feeling of community, come on out and just see at the crisis center. And this wasn't even connected with you guys. There's a wall behind the crisis center,
right? And
there's a whole other organization. They paint it. They take the kids from the neighborhood and they paint butterflies and bugs and stuff. That wall is gorgeous. It had nothing to do with Veterans Village, but it's this project.
It was there before us.
Yes, and it's a project that came out of other people wanting to do something in that community to make it look better and to, just improve the quality of life for everybody there. So, yeah.
So our Fremont Street district is the area where our master plan's coming alive. Anybody who's been to East Fremont Street can understand what I'm saying. So
exactly.
It's quite an area.
Right, How long do you think it might take to turn that around? Can you even guess?
In my world, 3 years. In the real world of delays, probably 5 to 7. But it's already starting.
Yeah.
I mean, we have almost 500 people housed in that district now that weren't housed before.
Right. So. And just, I can tell you from experience that just when you think, and as I was writing these out today and I was counting them, it's like kind of just seeing them on paper, it's like, we're up to 6 now.
Yeah, we're up to 6.
And they happen so fast that it's sort of like the Vegas phenomenon.
It is.
People forget that it takes a while to build something or to renovate something or to create a new project, because when it's done and because you have so many that are successful, when they open, they're already successful. So there's this, I think for me, there was a perception of, well, he hasn't been doing this long. Yeah, you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, well, and one of my favorite stories is the Wynn adopted us about 1.5 years ago, and about 3 months into the process, they told me, you're going to need to slow down, you're moving too fast for us. So
don't you love that?
That was funny.
I guess, I made your kids.
I said, wait a minute, you guys build hotels, but you're moving a little too fast for us.
Well, and it's always a pleasure to have you
you
on,
so
and
much,
thank
Rikki.
you so
Thank
much
you,
for what
thank
you
you.
do and your service, because all service doesn't necessarily have to come with time in the military.
That's correct.
Your
And
service
yours too,
to this
what you've done,
community is
so.
is outstanding, and I
Thank you.
I never miss an opportunity to hype another Veterans Village project. So stay tuned. There's Fremont. That's going to be the next one.
Fremont is next,
Right.
and the women's campus is going to be next.
So too.
It'll be about April.
So yeah. So he'll be back. he can't go anywhere. And we'll
Thank
be
you
back
so
next
much.
week. Make sure you join us for Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese, and just go on his website. Go see one of these projects. You can see not just his vision, but the vision of so many people and companies in this community who want to see things happen in a positive way for our male and female veterans. So get in the car, take the kids, take a tour. It's a good thing. We'll see you next week.